A very pleasant good morning and welcome to Apnu+Afc TV on this Tuesday, the 16th of June. My name is Randolph Critchlow. I want to thank you for joining us, to those persons joining us in the diaspora, in the region, and of course, Guyanese right here at home. It is a rainy Tuesday morning, and we would have braved the rain to come and ensure that you get your morning information on this morning update show. We have been covering the national recount from the beginning, and we continue to bring you that information as things happen. Today, of course, is the 16th of June. Today is the day slated or expected that GCOM will continue deliberation of the CEO's report. And it is also expected that Madam Chair would make a pronouncement very soon. I wouldn't say today, given the nature of how things are happening. But the CEO would have presented his report on the 13th of June, last Saturday. And the Guyana Elections Commission now had at least 3 days to consider that. We know that yesterday, the Elections Commissions met. Those 6 commissioners and the chair of the commission, Justice Singh, they met and they deliberated for some time over it. Coming out of those deliberations, we have a number of issues. Let me just read part of it here. An attempt to shelve the CEO's observation report, which emanated from the national recount, was met with objection at the level of the Guyana Elections Commission on the basis that that report is critical to the Commission's quest to determine credibility of the general and regional elections held last March. The Elections Commission, chaired by Justice Claudette Singh, is expected to meet again today, June 16th, to continue deliberations on the CEO's report on the national recount, which included tabulation and of the vote recounted and a summary observation report of each electoral district. The Guyana Elections Commission initially discussed the CEO's report on Monday, June 15th, and from the onset, discussions emerged on whether the observation report should be considered. Now, we had Commissioner Vincent Alexander giving his views on the observation report and also the report coming out of the CARICOM community. On that end of it, the Elections Commissioner Vincent Alexander, though not dismissing the observation report compiled by the CARICOM community, he said that the observation team failed to take into full consideration the impact of voter impersonation that voter impersonation would have had on the 2020 general and regional election, on the simple basis that it was not privy to the records that confirmed electoral fraud that had taken place. This is coming out of Vincent Alexander, GCOM Commissioner. He said that the CARICOM report essentially is a basic electoral report. I do not think that the CARICOM people were disposed or had access to the death information or the immigration information, Alexander told reporters on Monday while explaining that whereas the 3-member delegation was aware of allegations, it was not in possession of official records submitted by the Immigration Department to the General Register, and the General Register Office. So again, it is a very general and basic electoral report, given that they did not have access to a number of those records that proved electoral fraud, right? They missed some of those key elements that would determine electoral fraud. But we have Vincent Alexander speaking for himself, and we'll go straight to that, and we'll be right back on this rainy Tuesday morning.
Absolutely.
Is there anything you can tell us about today's meeting?
Well, today's meeting sought to commence discussion on the report from the sea. I think in the first instance we had to get to the point of determining whether or not the observation reports would be discussed. And there were those who attempted to contend that we need to get to what they call the chase and simply give effect to the tabulation. A discussion therefore ensued, which eventually led into a commencement of a discussion on the observation reports. There was no in-depth discussions, except for the fact that I sought clarification on some matters. In that regard, I sought clarification on whether the Commission had in fact garnered evidence in relation to the deaths and the migration. And so the Commission, as the Secretariat, has now provided us with documentation to show that they had in fact gotten verification in relation to deaths and migration.
Verification saying what? That persons who...
A verification saying that there were persons who migrated, who were verified by the Chief Immigration Officer as not being in the country at the time of the elections, but votes were cast in their names. Similarly, the persons had died and votes had been cast in their names. In the instance of persons who had died, GCOM has a cutoff date in terms of the preparation of this list. Subsequent to that cutoff date, there would have been reports coming in that would not have been a part of the deletions from the National Register of Registrants. So those persons would have appeared on the National Register and on the voters list. And so it seems as if in the main instances of persons who died voted, there were persons who would have died and or had their deaths registered subsequent to GCOM's cutoff date for the preparation of its list.
How many persons are we looking at here in all?
In terms of the, I can only at this point in time, and I'm going to my documentation in the evening, speak to about 4 to 5 dead persons. In terms of the people who migrated, I'm doing some checks, but so far the information I have confirmed over 500.
And this is based on the investigation that GCOM is itself conducting.
Yes. Yes.
Enough to change the will of the people?
We are not yet complete in the process of the will of the people. We still have issues. I still have issues, for example, with 81 persons in Sophia whose ballots were not counted. There is still a tremendous difficulty for me with the 47 boxes on the East Coast, for which there is absolutely no documentation. So one has to be rather holistic. There are issues also, certificates of employment. I can't give you the numbers offhand of persons who voted but did not have certificates of employment. There are also issues of affidavits, oaths, of persons who voted of the relevant.
Yes. All told, how much you think that may account for?
All told is going to take us into the thousands.
Thousands meaning what figure?
Now, if you take the boxes on the East Coast, that's alone is around 10,000 plus. So all told, we're going into the thousands, beyond 10,000 and climbing.
So what is it you want? You want all 10,000 votes to be reconsidered?
My own disposition on this matter, I start off in the position of principle, that every vote should be counted, no one should be disadvantaged. And therefore, in that regard, in regard to the 47, I had previously said to you that my thought was that we should find a mechanism to allow those people not to be disadvantaged. And I have not gone there.
And your thoughts initially, if at all, on the CARICOM recount report?
The CARICOM report essentially is a basic electoral report. I don't think the CARICOM people were disposed to or had access to the debt information or the information as part of their, I mean, they had the allegations, but not the reports that we have. And so they have a basic electoral report.
But you're saying it's sufficient to reflect the will of the people.
What they said, the recount that they saw, is sufficient to reflect the will of the people. That's what they said.
Do you support that?
The recount that they saw did not take into consideration the other issues to which I referred.
Right, I understand, but my question stands. Do you support
At this point in time, I'm still of the view that there are serious questions about the credibility given the irregularities that have been verified.
Is your position likely to change?
Not very much.
What are your thoughts regarding CARICOM's recommendations about the political composition of GCOM?
Oh, I've talked about that in the past. I haven't personally talked about that in the past to the press. We do have a commission that is, as said by one commissioner, a bipartisan commission. That will be problematic. I've said that. So they haven't come to tell me about that. I've said that.
In your estimation, how far are we from an official declaration?
I think we are, in this week, there'll be a final pronouncement.
Meaning a final declaration.
In this week, there'll be a final pronouncement.
Is a pronouncement different from a declaration?
Pronouncement is a broader category of things. It may include a declaration.
What are the other things may include?
Huh?
What are the other things that may encompass a pronouncement?
A pronouncement could say that the elections were credible.
You think you'll get support around the horseshoe table for that?
You asked me a question, and the answer to the question was, before the end of the week, we should have a pronouncement.
But I'm asking if you believe you'll get majority support around the horseshoe table position.
Which position? A pronouncement?
That no,
There
that,
is a
It's
pronouncement.
not that it
wasn't
will be credible.
I can't say so.
Mr. Alexander,
It would make a nonsense of an order with censuses and exercise of the nature that we went into, and then to turn around and say that you did it for no reason. To make a nonsense. I think that one has to depart from a mere literal interpretation of the law to a contextual interpretation, which is one way in which law is interpreted. A contextual interpretation will obviously say to you that if you sat down and agreed that you're going to do these observations, then they must be done for purpose. It can't be done for cosmetics. That's my disposition.
Does GCOM really have the legal power to say that elections were not credible?
There are different views in the matter. The court will have to pronounce eventually.
But your
GCOM is not as one. You've asked me what GCOM is leaders. GCOM is not as one.
but you personally believe.
I personally believe that we set out on the 162 to engage in a particular exercise and to make a nonsense of what we did. If we didn't think that what we did could result in taking into consideration the observation we did.
so Mr. Alexander, if it is determined that the elections were not credible, what's the next step?
I think the legal luminaries will have to answer that question. I'm not quite sure I'm the one to answer that question.
Thank you very much for staying tuned to APNU-FC TV on this Tuesday morning, the 16th of June 2020. For those persons who are now joining us, my name is Randolph Critchlow. You are listening to Vincent Alexander there speaking to the media yesterday, the 15th, on the deliberations the GCOM went through of the report, the CEO's report of the national recount. Remember that the CEO submitted his report on the 13th, and of his report basically included the tabulation and also a summary of the observation reports from Region 1 to Region 10. Vincent Alexander expressing there, also speaking on the CARICOM report, saying essentially that the CARICOM team, they were not privy, or the team was not privy to a number of information, a number of pieces of documents and evidence that would prove electoral fraud. So they basically presented an electoral report, a report of what they saw. Of course, they would have, in their own document, agreed that they only were able to observe some 18.8% of the actual boxes that were counted. And Vincent Alexander adding there that when I say they, the CARICOM team, they were not privy to the documents provided by immigration, provided by the General Registrar Office, that would show clear cases of electoral fraud. So when thinking about that CARICOM report, we have to take it in context. You have to understand that they are just giving a basic report of what they would have observed. Of course, they would have heard about the allegations, but their job wasn't to investigate it. So it is not surprising that they did not see any of those documents that would have proven electoral fraud. So that was Vincent Alexander giving you the information there. We've seen in the last 24 hours or so the CARICOM report being pushed by the opposition, and we've also seen the OAS come out. We've also seen a number of other organizations that we know have been lobbied by Mercury coming out to hold up the report. We want to very quickly take you to Anil Nandalal himself, who the PPP now are going to take the report and run with it as if it is gospel. Only a few days ago, Anil Nandalal was very vociferous in the media about GCOM not having to consider the CARICOM report. All right, this same Anil Nandalal, remember we would have been going through Anil versus Anil every day. This same Anil Nandalal now would, and the PPP are holding up the CARICOM report and using it as some sort of basis. Remember that the CARICOM report, the team was not necessarily privy to a lot of the information that would have proven, as Vincent Alexander explained just now. So let's just go to Anil now, and we'll come right back and continue this discussion.
Once that is examined, you will come to the conclusion that it does not provide for GCOM to await any order, any report from CARICOM. You will know that GCOM crafted that order, and then it did not have that in it. That is absent. Then GCOM did an addendum at which there was a full meeting and deliberation. And were it to be included, GCOM was free at the stage of the addendum to amend the order to include the incorporation of a report from the CARICOM team. GCOM chose not to do so. So I cannot imagine that GCOM would want to await some report from CARICOM when the order doesn't provide. The order speaks very clearly and in mandatory fashion to the process by which GCOM is to conclude this exercise. And nowhere in that procedure is there a provision for CARICOM report to form part of the process ante the declaration. Perhaps at some stage, post the declaration, GCOM can have the CARICOM report, but speaking based upon the literal and clear language of the order, the order does not permit and does not allow GCOM to await any such report from CARICOM.
Saying, of course, there that maybe sometime post-declaration that GCOM can consider the CARICOM report. This is the same Anil Nandalal that, of course, and along with the PPP, are now pushing that CARICOM report very strongly in the media and other places. Again, just highlighting the Anil versus Anil trend that we would have seen over the last couple of months during the elections. Speaking one thing when it suits him, speaking something else when it does not suit him. So we are here on the 16th day of June. We, as the president would have said, this is a 4-stage process highlighted in the order. the tabulation process and observation process that was done at the Arthur Chang Conference Center for about 33 days. And then the CEO had 5 days to compile his report based on those tabulations and those observations. That was then presented to GCOM. We are now in the third phase where GCOM commissioners and the chair, Justice Claudette Singh, they are deliberating over that report. They are deliberating over that report that was done on Monday that started. There was deliberations yesterday. There were deliberations yesterday, and those are expected to continue this morning at GCOM, at the level of GCOM. And after that is done, that will conclude the third phase of this national recount process. And then finally, the chair will make a pronouncement which would conclude. Vincent Alexander there, giving some clue as to when that will happen. He stated that sometime this week we'll have a pronouncement. Sometime during this week we'll have a pronouncement. And finally, the country will be able to rest a little bit because, you know, we would have been waiting over 3 months now for some answers as to what really happened on March 2nd. We would have highlighted from the onset the numerous amounts of electoral fraud that we would have uncovered during that process. Going back into the boxes, examining all of what happened, and just a little reminder, we have major issues as the Apnu+Afc would have presented and GCOM staff would have observed during those 33 days. Major issues in each and every voting district. That would have been highlighted in the report by the CEO, as he would have mentioned at the end of every single observation summary that the information does not meet the criteria for fair and credible elections. And this is out of each and every electoral district. As Vincent Alexander would have mentioned in that piece just now, there are still major concerns. I heard him say 47. Before it was 41, now it's 47 boxes that votes amassing to over 10,000 votes that we cannot at this point in time verify. We can't validate because there are no official documents to accompany those votes in the boxes. And that is a major concern. That's a major concern for GCOM. That's a major concern for us. It should be a major concern for every right-thinking Guyanese. That our electoral process can be infiltrated and manipulated in this dastardly manner. That you can present a box that just has a ballot in it, and it's expected to be counted. Like we would have been saying, we don't want anybody's vote, any Guyanese to be disenfranchised. It is the same token. We would have expected to be extended to those 81 persons who voted in Sapphire, and the stamp was not affixed, or the thousands of joint service ballots. Right? Those are legal Guyanese, so why weren't their votes counted? Why is it that we are counting votes in a box that we can't validate? We're counting votes that come from Region 7, Region 8, Region 9, where persons would have voted without an identification card, without an oath of identification also. We're counting votes that we would have proven the persons were out of the jurisdiction where persons were dead. Those votes are counted. We're counting votes that we can't verify, thousands of them from the Lower East Coast, the PPP strongholds. Why are we not counting those votes that we know are valid, those joint services votes? Why are we not counting those votes from Sapphire, the 80-something votes that are missing the stamps? And this is the idea of fairness. This is the idea of fairness that we have been asking about from day one. Thousands of documents missing from this March 2nd regional and general elections. And GCOM has to consider the mountain of evidence now in front of them as they deliberate. The CEO was very clear in his report on the observations that it does not meet the criteria for fair and credible elections. So as GCOM deliberates today, we will wait. That meeting is expected at 10 o'clock this morning, and they will continue to deliberate over those observation reports presented by the CEO. And on our 12 o'clock program, we have some more of our agents who are part of that national recount at the Ortacham Conference Center, giving you an idea of exactly what played out there. And we'll continue to bring you, I'm hopeful that at the 5 o'clock show, we'll have some important information coming out of GCOM as we continue to follow the national recount. We continue to bring you the information. We will end our show this morning, and we of course ask every single Guyanese to continue to follow the COVID guidelines. We know that the coronavirus is still with us. We know that it's not going anywhere. Testing continues. The Ministry of Public Health continues to do their testing and continue to let persons know all the things that they need to do. By now you should be aware, acutely aware of all the things you need to do in terms of sanitizing your hands, washing your hands, wearing your mask, and of course observing social distancing rules when you're in public spaces. Even in your homes, as persons visit your homes, ensure that you do the things that you need to do to ensure you keep yourself and your family safe. We'll be back at 12 o'clock with more information coming out of the national recount. We're a more comprehensive show at that time. We have some persons on expressing their views also. Until then, my name is Randolph Critchlow. Do enjoy the rest of your morning. It's already morning. The Ministry of Agriculture and the Hydromet, of course, we've had that flood warning in effect for a while now. We know what this season gives in Guyana, so please do all the things to keep your family safe. Do enjoy the rest of your morning.